Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and also happy Valentine's Day if you're watching this on Monday the 14th. I hope you are all feeling the love today and doing something special with your friends, family or your loved one. Okay, so I know literally 0 people asked for this, but you're gonna get it anyway. I wanted to do a video today to talk about the reason why I went vegan in the first place, because I think it helps to just know someone's story and like the reason why they're doing things, especially on YouTube if you're going to be watching my videos. But I'm also one of those people that gets really interested to hear people's stories about why they got into veganism, what made them change their mind, and just kind of like hear about their personal choices and things like that that made them become vegan in the first place. So hopefully you will find this quite interesting, and maybe it might even help you make a decision if you're thinking about making a change. Okay, so starting at the beginning, 1993, I was born. The world was blessed. I was born a vegetarian. My parents raised me and my brother as vegetarian because they were both vegetarian. How many times can I say the word vegetarian in a minute? And I could go into the reasons why my parents decided to raise us as vegetarians, but that's a story for another day. So yeah, I was vegetarian from 1993, and then I met my boyfriend in 2015, and he actually was the one to show me the documentary Cowspiracy. I don't know if you've heard about it before, but it was basically, I don't know if it did come out in 2015 or not, but it was about the environmental impacts of eating meat and consuming dairy. Anyway, he convinced me to watch this documentary. He said that he'd watched half of it and thought that I'd find it interesting as a vegetarian. So I gave it a go and watched it by myself and cried watching it. That's embarrassing to admit, but that happened. And basically I just didn't realise, I hadn't made the connection between, because obviously as a vegetarian I ate dairy and eggs, honey, and I think those are the kind of only products, and then obviously I used makeup products, cleaning products that had animal ingredients in them without ever thinking about that really. So yeah, so I was going along consuming these things without really thinking about the impact on the environment or the animals. So what Cowspiracy did for me personally was just highlight the fact that although I was vegetarian, the dairy and the egg industry and things like that were still contributing to animal cruelty and eventually animals being killed as well, which was the whole reason I was happy to be a vegetarian my whole life, because I didn't agree with the fact that animals were used for food. So when I kind of made that connection between what was happening with the food that I was eating and then where my money was going to, that was kind of like a wake-up call for me. I just hadn't really realised that, so that was like quite shocking to find out. I also had no idea about the environmental impact of eating animals and consuming dairy products. The documentary goes into a lot of information about land use, water use, the chemicals that are used, antibiotics that are used, and also greenhouse gas emissions. And before this I knew none of this at all. I mean, I was just a vegetarian because my parents told me that I was a vegetarian, so I never really questioned it. I never really made the connection between, you know, I'd heard about gas emissions, and you know, as a kid in the 90s we were told about the ozone and the layers of atmosphere and things like that, but I'd never been told that the kind of food that we eat can have an impact on the environment. So just growing up, that wasn't something that I was actually aware of, even though I was a vegetarian, so technically my diet was actually having less impact on the environment than other diets may have had. So just to share some facts with you from the Cowspiracy documentary, the ones that kind of really stuck with me. Animal agriculture is responsible for 18% of all greenhouse gas emissions, which is more than all of the transport industry combined. And methane gas is 25 to 100% more destructive than CO2. Methane gas is the stuff that comes out of cows. I don't know a better way to say it. Cows actually produce 150 million gallons of methane every day. So 2,500 gallons of water are required to just produce 1 pound of beef. And actually 1,000 gallons of water is needed to produce just 1 gallon of milk. Also, animal agriculture is responsible for 20 to 33% of all freshwater consumption in the world. In terms of land use, 45% of the Earth's land is actually used for animal agriculture. That one really struck a chord with me because I just thought about the amount of space that's needed for cows, not only for producing meat, but also for dairy as well. Obviously, they're huge animals, they need a lot of land. And when you have like hundreds of thousands of them, and you know, millions across the world, that is going to take up a lot of space. So if you just think about that much, like nearly 50% of the world just for, not cows, but you know, animal agriculture, that's a lot of land being used just to produce like 1 or 2 types of things. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. In terms of how much land is needed per cow, it's actually 2 to 5 acres per each individual cow, so they do require a large amount of land per animal. Antibiotics was another thing that I hadn't heard about before. 80% of the US's antibiotics go to livestock, so animals that are used in animal agriculture. But the main fact that I kind of took away from Cowspiracy that really stuck with me is 70 billion farmed animals are reared every year worldwide, and more than 6 million animals are killed every hour just for food. 6 million. Anyway, that's enough facts. I'm not going to bore you to death with all these different facts, but basically this documentary is packed full of information, so I would highly recommend watching it even if you're just interested in hearing those facts alone. It's really definitely worth a watch. So in terms of making my decision to go vegan, I would say that it was the same night that I watched Cowspiracy. I don't want to say I was like massively influenced by just that alone, but it just kind of tapped into a core feeling that I had, that I've just realised that what I was doing wasn't in line with my ethics and what I believed as a vegetarian. It just wasn't syncing up. So I made the decision that night, and I woke up in the morning and I was like, I'm gonna go vegan. That's it, I've made up my mind. But in reality, making all the changes, you know, living in a house full of vegetarians, so it wasn't as hard as it would be if I lived with people that ate meat. But, you know, making those changes and things like that and editing my lifestyle to fit into a vegan lifestyle, it does take time. So the decision was an overnight decision, but actually putting it into action, I'd say, took about 1 to 2 years, especially to get all the nuances and the tiny details that there are about veganism. I do hear people say that going vegan is super easy to do and that you can do it overnight and things like that. And to be honest, I think that's a bit of a false narrative, because if you're someone that, you know, has a certain habit and you buy certain things, it's going to take a while to unlearn those things. So, you know, even just checking the backs of packages for whey protein, I mean, that shit gets in everything. So I don't believe that it's an easy thing to do. And I went from vegetarian to vegan, let alone from someone that ate meat and fish and things like that to going vegan. That would be a huge change. I always say progress over perfection anyway. So yeah, I think if you're aiming to get better in terms of like the diet and the lifestyle that you have, then that's much better than trying to make an overnight snap decision and just go straight in at the deep end, because a lot of the times people do go full force and they end up having to go back to eating dairy or eating meat even, because it was kind of too much change all at once. So I'm a big advocate for people that take their time and make changes slowly if that's what works best for them. Another element to my story about how I became vegan was that at the same time I was also studying fashion design at university in Bristol, and we were putting together our final year collection. So this was across 2015, 2016. So I was in the process of trying to become vegan, trying to cut out dairy products from my lifestyle. And I hadn't even thought about materials and the fabrics that I was using in fashion. At that time, the pieces that I was working on for my final collection contained a lot of animal materials that I hadn't really considered where they'd come from. So I had leather, suede and silk in my collection in different kind of garments, and I really hadn't given much thought to where those materials came from and the fact that there was an animal connected to them at the other end. It wasn't until a visiting lecturer came in from the leather industry to talk about hides and where they get their leather from and how it's better quality than other people's leather and things like that, that I actually saw the hides laid out flat on a table, and I realised it made the shape of a cow. And that was, for me, was insane, because I'd only ever seen like small squares of leather or scraps of it, so it just looked like any other material. But when I actually saw the outline of a cow flat on the table, I was like, well, hang on a minute, I'm vegan, trying to be vegan, and been vegetarian my whole life. This isn't something that I agree with. So I actually got a bit sick. I was like, how can I be trying to be vegan and I'm using like the skin of a dead cow, and then like later on learning about silk and things like that. So yeah, that was a bit of a last minute change, so gave away all of the leather that I had and had to change my collection quite last minute. But I'm really glad that I did, because now I have a collection that I'm really proud of to look back on, that fits in line with my ethics and that I worked really hard on. There are so many reasons to become vegan. You know, my reason was mainly for the animals, the fact that I just don't agree with people killing animals when there's no need to. But it's really important to know that there are so many reasons why people become vegan, and some of them may resonate with you. So there's going vegan for the animals, it's called, which is, you know, if you're someone that believes that animal cruelty is wrong, you know, you're someone that loves animals, maybe you've got dogs and cats or pets, that kind of thing. If you love those animals and you feel connected to them and you wouldn't want to see them hurt, then maybe have a think about the animals that are used for food and really The difference is only the marketing that we've had. You know, we've had that fluffy factor for pets that we never got for farmed animals. And similar to me with never seeing leather for the fact that it came from a cow, many of us kind of would buy products in the supermarket and they're in these weird shapes and stuff that isn't actually how it originally looks, that you maybe don't think about the animal that it came from originally. So yeah, just speaking from my personal experience, it's really important to connect to the fact of where your food comes from, where your fashion comes from, and to check in with yourself and make sure that that's something that you actually agree with. Another huge reason to go vegan, which is actually gaining a lot more popularity at the moment, is for environmental reasons. So linking to the facts that I kind of talked about before from Cowspiracy, but there's also so many other documentaries that you can watch as well. There are so many reasons that going vegan is one of the best things that you can do to reduce your individual carbon footprint. If you are someone that is concerned about climate change and you're thinking, what can I do myself to kind of make a difference? Going vegan might actually be a good option for you, because with a few lifestyle changes and dietary changes, you can actually reduce your own carbon footprint by a considerable amount. And you can also change the opinions of other people around you. That's one thing about environmental veganism that I really do appreciate, is that it's actually spread out so much and more people have come to veganism because of it. Partly from the Extinction Rebellion movement and similar kind of protest movements and things like that, but also just we've got much more access to information at the moment. So the things that we were told about dairy and the meat industry in the past and the greenwashing that's kind of gone on is kind of being dispersed, and we've got access to science that we didn't have before. And we've got more people speaking up on behalf of the environment and more advocates for people going vegan at the moment. So it's a lot easier to tap into that information and to educate yourself if you are someone that wants to do your bit for the environment. So yeah, so there's the environmental reasons. There's also health, which is kind of one of the lesser known and probably one of the lesser researched areas of why people go vegan. I follow Tabitha Brown, and I know that she went vegan for her own health, and her story is amazing. So if you haven't heard about her, give her a Google, she's amazing. But I know that there's still a lot more information that needs to be done about the benefits of a vegan lifestyle for your health. There's been research already that has suggested that it can have a positive effect on reducing your likelihood of heart disease, different cancers, different kinds of diseases. I think that there does need to be a lot more research done on this before anything's too conclusive. So it all depends on your individual health levels and what your doctor recommends and things like that as well. So I think with health, it can be a bit tricky to know if a vegan diet is going to work for you. And there's obviously things like supplements and nutrition information that you need to access as well. So I think that one's a bit more of a complex reason, but it might influence your decision to go vegan. Another reason that I kind of know about that it's probably less talked about is the kind of economics or societal benefits of going vegan. So 82% of starving children are being raised in countries where food is grown to feed to animals, and the animals are being eaten by Western countries. This is one of my fundamental reasons for going vegan, is because we've seen how much food is being grown around the world and it's being given to the animals largely. And there are people starving to death, and I'm not saying something as simplistic as give the food that you would give to animals to humans. I don't think that's the solution, but there has to be a better way of feeding the whole world rather than just massively feeding the West. And I just think that the disproportionate consumption of food is largely influenced by the amount of meat and dairy that we consume in the West. So in all aspects, I don't believe that eating meat and dairy is a sustainable solution for feeding the world. And it would be good to see more research and scientific reports coming out in this sector as well. Anyway, so that is my vegan story so far. I have been vegan since 2015. Again, like I said, it took me about a year or two to get all of the details worked out for the whole vegan lifestyle. But I say 2015 because that's when I kind of started the journey. So this year will be my 7th year as a vegan, which is insane. I never thought I'd say that. If you'd have asked me when I was vegetarian if I was going to go vegan, I would have said probably not, because I didn't really understand what a vegan was. I didn't really know what they ate. I was, you know, the person that would say what would be left to eat if you were vegan kind of thing. So yeah, it just wasn't a thing growing up for me and the circles I was in. So being vegetarian was weird enough. So as a kid, it wasn't something that I was ever thinking about. So I think for anyone that says, oh, there's no way I could go vegan, I just think, don't limit yourself. You know, you can do anything. So why would you say that you're not capable of something? You can do it. Anyway, comment if you have any questions that I can answer about veganism. Like I said, I'm not an expert on anything scientific, but if you have any questions about my journey with veganism or anything like that, just let me know. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know if you're vegan and what was your reason for going vegan. Was it one of the ones I listed, or was it something else that I haven't mentioned? But thank you so much for tuning into this video, guys. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and please remember to subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it. Please share with people that you think it might be interesting for, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.